Let us now begin our journey into the mists of ancient China, into the shadows of myth, where dragons stir and emperors ascend from legend. Whispers of the Ancients, East Asia. Episode 1. Xia Dynasty Mythical, c. 2070 to 1600 BCE, Ancient China. 1. Before history, there was myth. Before oracle bones whispered fate, before bronze rang in war and ritual, before the Han, the Qin, or even the Shang, there was Xia, or so they say. Wrapped in myth and mystery, the Xia Dynasty is the phantom breath of China's beginnings. A dynasty not etched in stone, but in memory, myth and moral tale. It is a realm of floods and sages, of kings who carved rivers with their bare hands, and of a people who rose from chaos into the order of civilization. This is not just the story of the first Chinese dynasty. This is the origin dream of a civilization, where the gods walked among men and the emperor was more than mortal. This is the Xia. 2. The mandate before heaven. To understand the Xia, one must first understand what they represent. In later dynastic chronicles, particularly the records of the grand historian by Sima Jin, the Xia are described not merely as rulers, but as the foundation of Chinese kingship. Their story would become the template. A wise ruler brings order from chaos. He tames the floods. He listens to heaven. He loses the mandate through arrogance or tyranny. Another rises. This concept, the mandate of heaven, though formally developed later, traces its moral echoes back to Xia. Whether real or not, the Xia had to exist for China to explain itself free. From flood to founding, Yu the Great. Every myth needs a hero. Xia had Yu not just a king, but a tamer of the flood. The story goes, the world was drowning. Rivers raged, crops vanished, people wandered in despair. Yu's father, Gung, tried to stop it with dams but failed and was executed by the gods. Yu, however, took a different path. He studied the land, walked among the rivers. He dug channels, carved canals, not blocking the waters but guiding them. He labored for 13 years, passing his own home 3 times, never entering, to devoted to the task. Finally, the waters receded, order returned, the people crowned him king. Thus, the Xia Dynasty began, and with it, the idea that righteous action and selfless labor legitimized a ruler. Engagement prompt. What myths of origin inspire you? Are they heroes, flood stories, or sacred rulers? Share in the comments. Let's journey through the world's oldest tales together. And while you're here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to uncover more whispers of the ancients. Shall I continue with the next segments, diving into early Xia society, their legendary rulers, and a gradual evolution from myth into Bronze Age statecraft? Certainly. Let us now delve deeper into the legendary world of the Xia, where myth meets the dawn of civilization, and echoes of ritual, governance, and kingship begin to shape a people's destiny. Forgot the legacy of Yu, bloodlines and burdens. When Yu the Great tamed the floods, he did more than save the land, he set a precedent. For before him, leaders were chosen by merit, selected by the will of heaven and the will of the people. But Yu, as the people's savior, did something radical. He passed the throne to his son, Qi. This act birthed the hereditary monarchy in China. The people resisted. Some thought Yu's appointed successor, the virtuous boy, should have inherited the rule. But Qi claimed the throne by force, crushing the opposition at the Battle of Gan. The age of chosen sage kings ended. The dynastic cycle had begun. A cycle of rise, rule, corruption and fall that would echo for millennia. 5. Qi and the shadow of King's Qi's rule was marked by consolidation. He expanded territory, imposed tributes, and introduced the first notions of centralized authority. But the reverent air of Yu's age faded quickly. Qi's son, Taikang, abandoned rule for hunting. He vanished into the wilds, and chaos returned to the Xia court. The people rebelled. The Huai, a tribal leader, seized the capital. Others, like Hongzhou, ruled as usurpers. Thus began a pattern of weakness and restoration, a rhythm of instability that would characterize Xia's long, shadowed reign. Yet, even in decline, the Xia kings built the scaffold of what was to come: titles, tribute systems, sacrificial rites, and a vision of kingship that tethered power to moral obligation. 6. Echoes in the earth, Erlitu and the Bronze Dawn. archaeology meets myth at a place called Erlitou, discovered in the early 20th century. Near the Luoyang Basin, Erlitou is a sprawling ancient city, dating back to roughly 1900 BCE, just when the Xia were said to rise. Here, archaeologists found palatial buildings, urban roadways, bronze workshops, and turquoise-inlaid ritual vessels. There is no sign that says "Welcome to Xia," but if the Xia ever existed, this may have been them. The Erlitou culture, as it's known today, marks the emergence of state-level society in the Yellow River Valley, a culture that wielded ritual power, military might, and bronze not only as technology, but as sacred medium. 7. Bronze and blood, the rise of ritual. Power. In the ancient world, metal was not just utility. It was divine authority forged in flame. The bronze vessels found at Erlitou were not tools of trade or tools of war. They were tools of ritual. They held wine and sacrificial offerings meant for ancestors, spirits, and heaven itself. In Xia, as in later dynasties, the king was the high priest, intermediary between the world of men and the spirits. Rituals were held to summon rain, ward off disaster, and proclaim legitimacy. These rites were more than belief, they were political tools, embedding the ruler in a cosmic order. To rule, one must speak the language of heaven. What civilizations' myths do you want us to explore next? Would you like to hear the whispered legacies of ancient India, Japan, or the jungles of Southeast Asia? Let us know in the comments, and while you're at it, hit that subscribe button to journey deeper into forgotten realms. 8. Of spirits and sacrifice, the Xia worldview. The Xia worldview was deeply animistic, nature teemed with spirit, rivers, mountains, ancestors all alive. To navigate this world, the Xia performed sacrifices and divination, seeking harmony with the invisible forces around them. The king was not above these forces, he was bound to them. Misrule led to floods, famines, eclipses, warnings from heaven. In this worldview, politics and cosmology were one. To govern poorly was to offend the heavens. To lose power was not just a political failure, but a spiritual punishment. This sacred sense of kingship would pass down through the Shang and Zhou dynasties and echo into the empires to come. 9. Women in the shadows. Though the Xia texts rarely speak of women, the myths whisper of queens, priestesses, and matrilineal remnants from an older time. Some scholars believe the Xia preserved traces of pre-patriarchal systems, where female shamans played vital roles. Even the mythical Nuwa, creator of humanity, was venerated in some tales from this era. While kings ruled in the day, women, perhaps, kept the mysteries of night. They wove silk, sang spirit songs, and maintained ancestral shrines. History may have forgotten their names, but their hands shaped the rhythm of Xia life. 10. A dynasty in decline. Toward the end of the Xia line, the kings grew cruel, decadent, and blind to fate. The final ruler, Ji, is remembered as a tyrant drenched in wine and blood. He built massive pleasure pavilions, forced labor from his people, and consulted with a cunning consort, Moshi, who delighted in cruelty. As famine struck and rebellion brewed, the people turned away from the Xia, and into this vacuum rose a new power, the Shang, led by Tang the Victorious, who claimed the mandate and struck down the tyrant. Ji fled to exile, and the Xia dynasty was no more. 11. Ashes of a dynasty, the fall of Ji. The end of the Xia was not sudden, it was inevitable. As King Ji descended into tyranny, he became a symbol of what kings must not be. He taxed the people into starvation, built palaces like Tilted Heart Tower where he threw lavish parties even as drought cracked the soil of his kingdom. Moshi, his infamous queen, is said to have laughed at the cries of starving children, a tale perhaps exaggerated by later dynasties, but potent nonetheless. The rebellion rose from Shang, a neighboring tribe ruled by the wise, Tang. With righteous banners and heavenly omens, Tang led his people into battle. At Mingshao, amid thunder and storm, the Xia forces were shattered. Ji fled, carrying treasures and guilt, eventually dying in exile, a king without a kingdom. Thus ended the first dynasty of China, but the story was just beginning. 12. The mandate of heaven. Birth of a doctrine. The Xia's fall gave birth to an idea that would define Chinese politics for 3,000 years. The mandate of heaven: if kings ruled justly, heaven blessed their reign. If they became corrupt, heaven withdrew its favor. Natural disasters, rebellions, and loss of power followed. This doctrine wasn't Xia's invention, but their downfall became its proof. The Shang rulers used Ji's tyranny as a moral justification for their own rise. Thus, dynasties were no longer just bloodlines, they were cosmic contracts. And of Xia, they became the cautionary tale woven into every change of power that followed. 13. Between legend and archaeology, modern historians debate, did the Xia truly exist? We have no definitive Xia-era inscriptions, only later records, such as the Bamboo Annals, records of the Grand Historian, and various oracle bone inscriptions from the later Shang Dynasty. We have Erlitu, a sophisticated culture matching Xia's timeline, but it offers no names, no kings, only ruins. Thus, scholars walk a razor's edge, balancing myth and material evidence. Some say the Xia was myth, crafted by the Zhou to legitimize their rule by slandering Shang and creating a first dynasty as a template. Others argue that myth often remembers truth, that behind Yu, Qi, and Ji were real chieftains, and behind their tales lie echoes of lived memory. Perhaps the Xia existed not as one kingdom, but as a confederation of tribal states, slowly evolving toward the centralized dynasties that followed. 14. Xia in the mirror of later dynasties. Each dynasty after Shang looked back at Xia with different eyes. The Zhou saw it as a moral lesson. The Han saw it as ancestral foundation. The Tang and Song scholars saw it as proof of continuity, linking mythical kings to Confucian virtue. In some ways, the Xia became more powerful in death, a symbol of what China was, and what it aspired to be. The concept of dynasties, of heaven's favor, and the centrality of moral leadership all found their spiritual root in the rise and fall of Xia. Whether real or not, Xia's cultural truth mattered more than empirical proof. 15. Whispered wisdom, the meaning of Xia. So what does Xia truly represent? More than stone or relic, Xia is a dream of beginnings. It tells us that civilization begins not only with tools or writing, but with memory, morality, and myth. It shows us the power of narrative, how stories shape nations, how legends mold laws, and how the past, even if veiled in mystery, still walks beside us. Xia is not just the first dynasty of China, it is China's first question: who shall lead? And how shall they lead? -16. Epilogue. Across time's mist, the Yellow River flows still, as it did in Yu's day. Its floods are now tamed by dams, its banks lined with highways and cities. But deep beneath its silted bed, perhaps lie fragments of a forgotten capital or bones of a king who once held the rain at bay. We may never find a stele that says "I am Yu," nor a palace floor inscribed with Xia, but we find their ghost in the rituals of emperors, in the annals of scribes, and in the heart of China's soul. For every great story must begin somewhere, and this, whether in dust or in dream, is where China's begins.